Hello, good day, and welcome to the Point 99 podcast. For regular listeners, you know exactly who I am, but for anyone listening for the first time, either because of this week's guest or maybe you just found us by complete chance, I am your host and your running companion, Mr. Steve. That might be while you're listening during those long runs, while you're catching your breath in between your interval sprints, or as you master your tempo sessions. As for the Point 99, it's a podcast for every runner of any ability. There's no pretentiousness here, we don't do cliques, and we certainly aren't trying to fake it until we make it as influencers. What you hear is what we are. Honest chat with everyday runners about everyday running, with people who usually hate to be tarred with the title of influencer or motivator, when they are usually just exactly that. Humble guests being humble about who and what they are and what they have achieved. The show has had one mission since its creation, to help everyone along whatever path their journey with running is taking. It might be through these relatable guests with their unique and inspiring stories, shared experiences and lessons that are learned throughout all of it. In a change to the old format, we also now have short educational segments designed to help improve all of our knowledge and make us more knowledgeable about the wider world of running. Hopefully by sharing all of this with you, you'll feel inspired and motivated to do amazing things, smash your goals and be the best running version of you. After an episode all about myself, again, and the Ultra X Scotland 50, that I really can't believe was almost a fortnight ago already, we are once again welcoming a guest to this week's episode. For those who are maybe more familiar with the standard, pretty much scripted introduction, you'll have heard a few changes to the norm. After welcoming Matt Sutcliffe back for his second episode a couple of weeks ago, and having someone who both knows Matt well through Instagram and has similar vibes and a humble nature, I thought I'd highlight that fact in the introduction. For many of the guests we've welcomed over the years, most, if not all, are extremely humble about their achievements, their reach, and the inspiration and motivation that they give to so many across the Instagram platform. That's usually exactly why I approach each of the guests in the first place. Conversations with real people who are just doing their best, enjoying themselves along the way, and generally not taking themselves too seriously is usually going to resonate more with you guys, the listeners, than any self-proclaimed influencer or peddler of contradictory information and advice, do's and don'ts, that change depending on the latest hot trend simply to get clicks, likes, and view time. So yes, we're always going to try raise up or cast a spotlight on those who we feel are just everyday people doing amazing things, making people smile, motivating, or just being all around legends. With that out of the way though, let's get into this week's episode. First off, I'll touch on what I've been up to for the past week, or the lack thereof, but also I had the opportunity to catch up with a colleague and friend of mine that I mentioned in the last episode, who sadly was unable to complete his 110-kilometre single-day challenge at the Ultra X Scotland that would have taken him around the entirety of Loch Ness and seen him demolish his past distance record. I know I'm mentioning the Ultra X Scotland again. Forgive me, I'm allowed to be happy and excited about it, but I think I just want to do a little bit of a highlight about this guy and kind of build upon what I mentioned in the last episode, because it's a really good example of something that I've got a comparison for as we kind of go through it. The guy in question is very, very humble about who and what he is. He claims not to be a runner, or comparatively speaking, especially when he's talking to me, but I always beg to differ. He is a runner, whether he likes to think he is or not. He, to me, is an ultra runner, whereas I will always tar myself with being a road runner, a marathon runner, because that's where my personal enjoyment will always lie. As much as I enjoyed the ultra, and I will enjoy ultras going forward, I find my enjoyment pounding the roads, the tars, the pavements, rather than pounding trails. Anyway, He'd achieved the 50-kilometer distance last year alongside his sister. So he really wanted to push himself and achieve something that only a couple of thousands of people around the world will ever achieve. So he threw himself into the 110-kilometer single-day event. Like I say, sadly, it didn't end the way that he would have liked, but he learned a few lessons along the way and is determined to come back fighting with more knowledge and experience under his belt. After having initially felt a little bit frustrated about not being allowed to continue when he reached the 62-kilometer section, which was where I started my event the next day, because of medical advice by the organizer, he realised that their imposed pullout was purely on safety grounds for not only himself but for others. Sure, he could have taken a break for a few hours before continuing, and it might have been possible, but he was experiencing a very strange sensation in his legs. Apparently, you could actually see the pulsation and muscle fibers, and he's the first to admit that he doesn't really have much muscle definition in his legs, not opposed to maybe a road runner like myself. So it was very strange to see and very strange to experience. Throughout the first 62 kilometers, though, he said he was enjoying it. He was taking his water, his supplements, his electrolytes. But it was a mixed bag day. It was very warm to begin with. Then there was rain, wind, hailstones, very mixed bag, and a lot of elevation and undulation throughout that whole part of the course. So when he reached the pretty much halfway or just halfway camp, which was at the end of Loch Ness, and he went to change his footwear and his socks, he then experienced this pulsation in his legs. The medic was very quick to spot that. She asked if he was okay, and then she advised that he wouldn't continue. He tried to argue that maybe a few hours of sitting, because the cutoff was very long, that he'd be able to continue maybe after resting for a little bit, but she obviously has a lot of experience and knowledge in that area of expertise, and said no, that's just not possible. So after some frustrations, he has come to the conclusion that that was the right decision. So praise should be given to the organisers for having the foresight and observation to spot that issue, as frustrating as it was for my friend. But realistically, it was the right call. Having seen the state of the final runner at the Cocodona 250, it really isn't safe to allow people to push themselves to such extremes of self-harm and potential long-term damage simply to get a piece of medal, the clicks on social media, and a little bit of an ego boost. There's no telling what long-term bodily and mental effect the chap who was the final one to complete the Cocodona 250 might have going forward, simply because the organiser didn't pull them out sooner than the state that he got himself into. Sure, let him finish, let him get there in the cutoff, but I mean, he really didn't look like he was in a very good state. And I think that sets a very dangerous example and a standard that people like Ultra X are sensible not to let happen. Now, sure, my friend's situation is so much lesser than the Cocodona guy's state, but I mean, it's the right call. Pull the people out when they need to be pulled out and save them. They can come back and do it again, but it doesn't set a bad example when you actually have the ability and the balls to stop someone from doing themselves any long-term damage and harm. Like I say, Cocodona 250, sure, if the guy was maybe in a good state until maybe even 10 miles before that, give him the medal, give him the praise, but the state that he was in, I don't think sets a very good example. I think the ultra running and long distance running community can do better than that. We always see marathon runners running to extremes, pushing themselves to the point where they get jelly legs, they can't continue, people run past them, and then you occasionally get people pick them up and help them over the line. But so many times people have been helped over the line and they don't get a medal, because in a lot of the situations and a lot of the terminology, you're meant to get across the line under your own propulsion. I don't necessarily agree with that, but yes, there's extremes and then there's extremes. But moving on from that, My post-ultra week has been really uneventful from a running perspective. I had a full week of election duties, so I didn't either have the time or energy to push myself out to get a recovery run. So I didn't really get out until this Monday passed, and I've had a few additional runs in between Monday and this episode coming out, really just to build myself back into it. First run back, it was a little bit heavy. The legs were a little bit sluggish, but I've really had no discernible bad or ill effects from the ultra. I didn't suffer from any stiffness, any tightness, and a lot of people are going to say that I'm making that up. But having had a lot of that from marathon running, I think the pace that I set myself, the hydration, the nutrition, I think I did everything right. That maybe I could have pushed myself a little bit faster in the ultra, but I think I really did well by myself to the point where I had no issue moving this week. I had no issue getting about, or I had no real tension or stress. So, I mean, win-win. Hopefully that continues at future events. It is a rare occurrence. I know everyone suffers usually walking upstairs, so I won't take that for granted going forward. Having a week off, however, did see my Strava streak end after some number of ridiculous weeks, and my run of completing at least a half marathon every weekend this year and some of last year, it both ended, sadly. But like the message I've just shared about looking after yourself and allowing recovery and not pushing yourselves to extremes, it's maybe dented my ego just a little bit, but I had to do what was right for me. Taking a week out was a good call, and I've seen the benefits for doing so in my own recovery. I'm going to just build back into it gently and hopefully smash the next event. On that, I am back on the horse, like I say. I'm doing a few little runs, and I'm getting ready for that next challenge, being the Highland Cross. I don't want to spend too much time covering that just now, but if you want to learn a little bit more about that challenge, hop on over to my Instagram profile and check out the last couple of posts, which I've covered in a little bit more detail about what I have coming up with that event in particular. Moving on though, and it's a return to the pre-recorded segments before we get into this week's guest conversation. If the segment isn't your bag though, there should be a chapter segment that will allow you to skip through to the guest chat. I mentioned it in the past couple of episodes, what this week's segment was going to be, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm simply going to cue it up. Please enjoy the chat about carbon shoes. Another episode, another segment. Maybe I should come up with a smart name there. But today we are looking at another huge topic, one that newer folks to running often find themselves asking about. You see it on Instagram, you see it on X, you see it on Facebook, and they likely spend even more time thinking about, and that's carbon race shoes. So today we are going to look at what they are, and ultimately, are they worth the hype that you see other people going on about? Over the last 5 to 10 years, carbon shoe technology has gone from being one of those weird ultra elite or professional runner things to something that you see on almost every start line, from race day to park run, believe it or not. Whether it's Nike, Adidas, Hoka, On Running, Puma, or even the carbon plated shoes I hear Lidl are now selling, they can leave new runners feeling a little bit confused, left out, overwhelmed, or all of those at once. As someone who wears carbon plated shoes on the regular and who can vividly remember how it felt to wear them on their first big race day, I can honestly admit that they are an amazing bit of kit. But even after a lot of research, reading, listening, watching lots of YouTube videos, it seems like black magic to me. Carbon shoes, they are fun. They're fast, they make you feel like you are flying along. Or on the flip side, and this is often the case with myself, you feel like you're going slow. You feel like you are not going anywhere, but in reality, when you look at your watch, you're going a lot quicker than you think. There's one major pitfall though that I have fallen into and a lot of other runners fall into with carbon shoes, and it's that they wear them for everything. I did for a long time, I don't anymore. But we're going to get round to why that's not such a good thing. I found myself wearing them for easy runs, recovery runs, tempo sessions, long runs. I sometimes even found I was wearing them going down to the local shop just because they were sitting at the back door. And yes, while carbon shoes absolutely have their place, relying on them for everything can ultimately work against you. And once again, they worked against myself, I know from experience, and this is something that I want to cover in this segment. Hopefully, by listening to what I experienced from listening to a little bit of the research that I have done, anyone new to carbon shoes that might be taking their first tentative steps into carbon plated technology can learn from the key mistakes and how not to make them themselves. But with that, let's get in depth as to what carbon shoes actually are. Most modern super shoes have three key components, two of which you have likely heard of before. Firstly, you have the carbon fiber plate, where the carbon shoe name comes from. It's usually embedded in the shoe's midsole, but some of the more recent shoes are using more elaborate embedded technologies to help maximize the benefits that you're getting from it. Secondly, you have the highly responsive foam. Again, you've probably seen videos of it being squished and squashed in different manners, but it's an amazing foam technology that helps return a lot of the energy that you put into each of your strides. And then finally, it's not always the case, but most of the modern super shoes have a rockered shape to their sole that helps your stride roll forward. Sometimes it's more exaggerated than others, but it's certainly something that you might be finding you're paying more attention to now. When combined, you get a shoe that generally improves the wearer's running economy, meaning you use slightly less energy than you might have otherwise while running at the same pace in a non-super shoe. And that's as simple as it gets. That's a basic breakdown of what a carbon shoe is and why it's so effective in races. They certainly don't make you magically fitter, but they do help make the energy that you've already put into the race go a little bit further than it might otherwise. The combination of the carbon plate and the responsive foam basically act like a spring system. As your foot lands from each stride, the foam compresses, the carbon plate becomes more rigid and stiffens the structure, and then it kind of gives a pushback of the energy that you've put into the stride. Think of it like a swimming pool springboard. When you jump on the end of the board, it drops down, it kind of compresses towards the water, and that's the foam. But then the board also has a flexing point, it quickly stiffens and propels back up again, propelling you upwards and into the pool. That's the carbon plate. In shoe terms, you get this bouncy rolling sensation that encourages a quicker turnover in your stride's propulsion, which is fantastic, especially when you're racing or doing hard effort runs. The problem with running everything in a carbon plated shoe or a super shoe, I'm going to interchange using those words, is that they're designed to assist your stride. The emphasis there is on the word assist. If you're wearing a super shoe all of the time, there's a few things that can happen, with the most significant issue being that your muscles do slightly less work. Now, that might not sound like a problem. In fact, it probably sounds like a godsend. Because the carbon plate is stiff though, and the foam is doing so much energy recovery, your calves and your muscles in your feet over time work a little less than they would in a traditional non-super shoe. Although that's exactly what you might want on race day, it's an assistance that over time will contribute towards your lower leg muscles not developing at the same level as they might otherwise, building less strength and, more importantly, less resilience. If or when you switch back to a non-carbon plated shoe or run on tired legs, you are probably going to feel the difference. It's also one of the main reasons those who only run in carbon shoes often find themselves getting niggles or full-blown injuries as they approach race day. The resilience just isn't there. And this goes back to what I kind of mentioned at the start. I'm no saint, I've been there. I know how amazing it feels to run every run in a super shoe, but I also know firsthand that it can take you out when you least expect it or you least want it to. Passing over the fact that a carbon plated race shoe can lower your muscle and general overall resilience, it can also encourage a certain stride pattern. Typically, a super shoe will help produce a slightly higher cadence. It'll give you a more forward rolling motion, like we spoke about in the way that the shoes look, and it can reduce ankle flexion. Again, these are all positives when we're talking about wearing them in races, but if every run you do is being influenced by that geometry, your natural movement pattern will become overly dependent on it. This is where the recommendation you've almost certainly heard of comes in: to invest in a variety of running shoes, rotating which ones you wear for certain sessions, and it can help keep your stride adaptable. It's not because, as runners, we love nothing more than new shoe day. We love spending money, which we do, but we're also low-key trying to help each other's well-being without necessarily saying it in quite a straightforward manner. Another practical issue that rotating between super shoes and standard running shoes can help overcome is that carbon shoes, they're not built for high mileage. Far from it. Their lifespan is in fact finite. Many models of super shoe often start losing their magic somewhere between 300 to 500 kilometers, some even earlier. So if you're doing all of your training miles in them, you might find that come race day, they don't have nearly as much of that good stuff left in them. They don't feel nearly as good. You've burnt them out. You've burnt through a very expensive pair of shoes before you even get past the start line. And sure, you can just go buy another pair, but do you really want to be burning through money needlessly, throwing things away, where if you just rotated through to another pair of non-carbon shoes or nylon shoes, you could have seen more longevity in that super shoe? Again, this is where rotating through a couple of pairs of shoes, both super and standard, will help you in the long run. Pardon the pun there. Shoe rotation isn't just about making shoes last longer. There's a lot of great evidence to back up the fact that runners who rotate shoes may actually have a much lower injury rate, albeit there are many factors that go into injuries than simply just what shoes you're wearing, but it can really influence the rate at which injuries occur. Actively rotating between a carbon super shoe and a non-super shoe can help vary the load on your body, meaning that you actively use different muscles, help different joint angles occur, and help different pressure points develop throughout your legs and throughout your body. So instead of stressing the same muscles and tissue fibers that you might stress in every run if you're wearing just carbon shoes, your body will get a bit of variety, and it usually tends to respond quite favourably to that. I'm going to talk from experience here again and help to try and give an example. We're going to look at weightlifting. That's something that I've started actively trying to put into my strength and conditioning to help my body become as prime as possible for race day, but also it is a slight vain thing here. If you're looking to build bicep peaks, simply doing weighted curls isn't enough. Sure, over time peaks will develop, but it will take a very long time. If, however, you vary the muscle groups that you build in and around your biceps, it'll encourage a more pronounced development, giving you that swole bulge that you're desiring in the first place. It's very similar to how running in carbon shoes and non-carbon shoes helps develop a variety of muscles in your leg and ultimately builds a lot of that resilience. But getting back to shoes, in reality, a simple solution might be a 3-shoe rotation. You don't have to invest a ton of money, fill in your cupboard, although you might want to. Having 2 or 3 different pairs can make a huge difference to your running. With a simple setup, possibly even being having a daily shoe, a tempo shoe, and then your cream of the crop, jewel in your crown race day shoe. Firstly, your daily shoe. This would be your workhorse, the shoe that you wear for easy runs, recovery runs, and general mileage. Something with good cushioning, no plate, and a nice comfort factor to build base aerobic mileage. For me, that's the Nike Vomero standard, but there are more plush versions that I see other runners I'm friendly with wearing, or when I'm perusing any of the big shops online, you get the Vomero Pro and Premium models as well. Competitors to these include the Brooks Glycerin Max, the Asics Gel Nimbus, the Puma Mag Max Nitros, rolls off the tongue that one, Hoka Bondi or Clifton, New Balance Fresh Foam X, and the Saucony Triumph. You would then have your speed or tempo shoe. This would be a lighter weight shoe with ideally a nylon plate, but a less aggressive carbon plate would also work for your tempo runs, interval sessions, or your faster long run sessions. Something that feels responsive but not quite full race mode. Again, this is where I would personally reach for one of my pairs of Nike Zoom X Vaporfly Next Percents, but the description fits a Zoom Fly by Nike a little bit more accurately. Although I don't have a pair of those, it would be the more accurate to the description. And then for a fair comparison, you'd be looking at the Saucony Endorphin Speeds, the Adidas Adizero Adios Pros, the Hoka Max 6s, the Brooks Hyperion Max, the New Balance Fuel Cell Rebels, or the Asics Metaspeed Skies. Then finally, your third pair for special occasions, that would be the carbon plated super shoe for race day. Like I say, it would be the jewel in your crown for your collection of running shoes. You would use those for race days, a couple of long runs maybe before the big day, and for key race simulations. I would once again either be reaching for my Vaporflies or my Alpha Fly Next Percents, also by Nike. They're like the more expensive pair out of the two. But if you ask anyone who wears both Vaporfly and Alpha Fly, they are likely going to give you a similar answer to it being how you feel on the day is which of the pair you're going to wear. Similar to Nike, you could once again be looking at a repeat offender in the Asics Metaspeed Sky and the Adidas Adizero Adios Pros, but with the other brands, it would be something along the lines of a Saucony Endorphin Pro, a Puma Deviate Nitro Elite, a New Balance Super Comp Elite, or if your budget is not quite as high as some other people, maybe even the Kiprun KD900X, a shoe that I have used an early version of. I didn't particularly like it, but it does work very well for other people. Certainly, there's a lot of alternatives that I haven't also mentioned, but there's a lot of trial that you can put into it as the end user to find out which feels the most natural and comfortable for you, and ultimately what would work best for you. As with all things running related, there's no one shoe fits all solution, and there likely never will be. What works for me is most likely not going to work for you. With all that being said, there's a bit of a kicker here and why you should still train in your super shoes some of the time. You shouldn't avoid them until race day completely. If you do plan to wear a pair of carbon plated super shoes on race day, there are a few key runs you should try and target while wearing them, because they do change the way your body loads for things like marathon pace runs. You could wear them for a dress rehearsal long run, and you could also wear them for goal-paced intervals. These runs would be the best opportunities to get used to how they feel and ultimately how they might perform on race day, minus the benefits of carb loading and electrolyte preparation that we've covered in previous segments. The absolute worst thing you could do, however, is to go buy a brand new pair of carbon-plated running shoes a week before or even on the week of the marathon and then run your first mile in them on race day. It is a mega recipe for disaster and can produce some serious pain in your calves. This is something that a lot of runners might notice when they first start using carbon plated shoes, and for some people it might be the reason that they swear off them altogether as a result. We've mentioned it right at the beginning, but because the geometry and stiffness of a carbon plated super shoe, there's an increased load that can be put through your Achilles and calf muscles, particularly if you've switched into them suddenly, let's say the week of your race, immediately running longer distances in them without breaking them in, or running in them while you've got tight calves already. Well, that's where you're going to get a lot of serious issues. This is where the recommendation to ease into them gradually with the key sessions of longer marathon runs after having broken them in is always a good idea, as well as making sure that you stretch regularly and ideally get a pre-race day massage or two to help ease off muscular tension. With any issues aside, muscular or otherwise, let's be honest, there's a serious cost factor to consider with carbon plated shoes as well. They are very expensive, with some pairs easily setting you back £250 or more, which really is the best reason to save them for the day that you're going to get the most benefit out of them. Unless you're absolutely stinking rich and made of money, it is always going to be the most advantageous approach to have. Save them for when you're going to get the most benefit out of them. At the end of the day, you should think of any shoe, super or otherwise, as a tool though. Simply put, different tools do different jobs. You shouldn't try saw with a hammer, and you certainly shouldn't try hammer with a saw. Your road bike wouldn't last very long going down a downhill mountain bike track, and your running shoes should be treated in a similar fashion. Yes, at the end of the day, running shoe manufacturers are in the industry to make money, but they're also making different models of their shoes to fit different purposes, and in running shoe brand terms, for different types of runs. Rotating between shoes gives your body the most movement variety, depending on the type of run that you're doing, which echoes back to the resilience and strength in your training and muscles. So my final thoughts though, carbon shoes are the absolute best. They're the knees of the bees. They are the donkey's donuts. They can make races so much more enjoyable, faster, and ultimately make the experience feel a lot smoother than it might have otherwise in a non-super shoe. They give you a serious free-flowing feeling and a real performance edge. They are, however, not meant to be a replacement for every other shoe that you should have in your rotation. If anything, the runner who benefits the most from having a super shoe, a carbon plated shoe, is the one who trains mostly in traditional non-super shoes, who builds strong, resilient legs, and who uses those carbon shoes when it really matters. These are the people who are smashing their PBs regularly and not sweating over a few seconds because they didn't have the resilience in their legs to see them through that last little push. And really, that's what they should be for, making the most of your big race day and reaping the rewards of a best laid out training strategy. So, if you're looking to buy your first pair of carbon race shoes, bear some or all of that in mind. Do your research and try out a few pairs in store. Ideally in a shop that's got a treadmill that can let you try them out in a running situation rather than just walking around the shop, because that's never going to give you the true sensation or the true feeling of what it really feels like to run in them. Especially in my experience, when you take into consideration something like the Nike Alpha Fly. If you were just walking around the shop in that, it feels like you're in high heels. They feel very rolly, very unstable. But then when you're running in them and you've got the compression of the foam, it doesn't feel anywhere near as harsh as it does just walking in them. And if you do invest in them, try to enjoy them. They are really great. Just maybe don't wear them down to your local parkrun to beat sweet old Mary from number 26. Wear them when it matters. Your legs and ultimately your bank account will probably appreciate it. But that's been my whistle stop explanation as to what carbon shoes are, why you shouldn't wear them all the time, why you should have a shoe rotation, and how you are likely going to benefit the most out of it. Like I say, I can speak from experience. I've been there. I've worn carbon plated super shoes for every run. And as a consequence, I've got tight muscles. I've had knee injuries, or what I thought were knee injuries, but were in reality tight calves, tight glutes, from not enough stretching, from wearing carbon plated shoes all of the time. And there's a lot of people out there, you'll see them, they're going hell for leather all the time, wearing just carbon plates. And come race day or just before, they have the boo-hoo, woe is me approach. They've injured themselves because they don't do the sensible thing of buying a couple of pairs of non-carbon plated shoes, maybe nylon plated, maybe nothing in them at all, just with a good foam, and then reaping the rewards. So try and learn from other people's mistakes. Be the best runner you can be. And ultimately, if you do all of that, you're going to smash it come race day. But with that, let's get back to the rest of the episode. As with the previous segments on carb loading and electrolytes, this is just my take from information and research that I've done alongside my own experience. So please don't take anything I say as gospel or anything of that sort. Carbon shoes certainly have their place, but they aren't always for everyone. They certainly work for me, but they might not work for you. So remember, do your own testing, find out what works for you, and don't force yourself into something that doesn't work, simply just because other people use them. You've got to do right by you, find out what works for you, and that will always be the message that trumps everything else. Segment-wise, we still have 2 more of the pre-recorded topics left. The next one up will harmonise well with our episode 10 guest, leaving the first of the audience-requested topics to accompany the new era of the podcast. Now, that one will follow a 2 or 3 week break once episode 10 has been published, but I'm looking to try and get more segments rolling. I've still got a few recommendations from the audience, but if you have any segment or any topic that you would like to hear more about or my take on, please let me know. Get in the DMs, get onto Instagram, or get into the emails. I will say, don't worry about the short break. I'll be configuring the format, breaking away from the season blocks and focusing on episodic releases. So it's not going to be too long. 2-3 weeks, as I say, at the most, and then we'll be back and we'll be hitting it harder than ever, getting you conversations with amazing people, giving you more segments, and just generally being the running podcast that I would like to listen to myself. Looking at the time it's taken me to record this, though I know time is getting away from me, so I'll do my best to move things along and get to this week's guest. I can't lie, I've honestly gained so much enjoyment and value from this man's content. I've had the privilege of being connected with him for several years, both supporting his content and occasionally dropping into each other's DMs for some light-hearted banter and positivity. I also thoroughly enjoyed the chat that I had with him that you're about to hear. He was a little bit nervous, but we did cover some of that towards the end of the conversation. This guy, however, is such an honest, as you see it, motivator who has grown so much in his time that I've been following him, and I've loved to see it. Hopefully he continues to find his wings and grow his audience. But on the topic of his audience, his growth has been fairly rapid over recent months, as he shares his unique and motivational approach to pre- and post-run positivity. At that, however, I'll line up the conversation and let my introduction do the rest of the talking. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by perhaps one of the nicest and most supportive individuals on Instagram, or at least within the running community. I know that's a line I've used a few times before, and it is always the case, but today there's no exception. This champion of championing is often one of the first to like and comment on your posts, while simultaneously raising you up, cheering you on, and putting a smile on your face with both his mega dance moves and delightful DM voice notes and singing. The dance floor spotlights might well and truly be on him just now, but his journey has been worth celebrating and partying about. So let's do what we do best and welcome the man who's more than just his majestic moves to learn all about his past, present and future. He's a Wolverhampton wanderer, a pre and post run dancer of devilish delights. It is, of course, only one man. Welcome to the show. Ready, Eddie, run, Ed Blackwell.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a great intro.
I'm glad it put a
Oh,
smile on your face. I told you it would.
thank you very much.
How are we getting on?
All good, mate. All good. Yeah.
Busy
Plodding,
day?
plodding. Pardon?
Busy day?
Yeah, busy day. I work in a retail, so it's always busy working with the members of the public, you can
The, the,
imagine.
the joyful public.
Yeah. Um, but interestingly, I'm starting to get my staff into a bit of dancing, which is good. So I'm encouraging them to express themselves at work as well. I think that's a good point to mention how the dancing helps me express myself, but I'm also encouraging my colleagues at work. Obviously, life is tough at times for people. I think it's always important that we encourage people around us to sort of have fun at work as well as in our own time. So
So what you're
yeah.
saying is there's going to be a TikTok account coming for your store and you're going to be sharing a lot of content on that.
I never know whether to share my work stuff on my running profile just because boundaries, and I sometimes wonder, but there is an Instagram page out there with a bit of dancing from a work perspective, but yeah.
I mean, it's all positive. It's all positive. Um, we've had a little bit of a pre recording chat because um, you're not super familiar with what we do here. But the main point of having you on today is because I'm fairly familiar with your Instagram page. I find you very inspirational and motivational. You put a smile on the face, especially when you get up and you roll out the wrong side of the bed. You turn on Instagram and you've got some amazing content, and especially more recently, your dance moves and your more relaxed approach to not taking life seriously, like you kind of mentioned there with dancing at work, really kind of puts a brightening on the day ahead. So I couldn't go for a full season without having you on. So I'm delighted that you've agreed, and Matt also, having had Matt on a couple of episodes ago. I don't think he would have let me get past, or either of us get past not having you on. So
Mhm. Good
hopefully
old.
this will be a good conversation. I'm in no doubt that it will be. So yeah, I think the best place to start though is can you give a little bit of background to those listening that maybe aren't familiar with you, or aren't maybe only a little bit familiar with you? A little bit of background about um, anything you've done sporting in the past from a young age, where you sporty, and then build into what was the reason for you becoming a runner.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good starting point. I remember at school, I was never sporty, definitely not. Didn't get involved. Probably wasn't encouraged to either by my mom, bless her, so
Mhm.
much. Saying that, I always remember football at school when we did it in PE. I always used to think I could be quite good at football, but I was never in that cool clique. I was never in that sort of clique where certain lads got picked all the time. And I felt the teachers perhaps didn't see me as a footballer, but they saw the cliques that were forming, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah. Mhm.
never forget playing sort of a tournament within the school, and I remember scoring an absolute screamer, and everyone looked round and sort of looked at me and thought, "Has he just done that?" Because typical Ed was overweight, not the first one to sort of put his hand up, that sort of thing. And I went through school thinking I could have been a lot better if the teachers had have spotted that or invested a bit more time in me. Probably because I was quiet, overweight, and didn't fit that image that they wanted. But other than that, like literally, I remember my mom. Mom was a single mom with four of us, so it was always very difficult for her. But I do remember she always encouraged us to swim, and she did her best to make sure we had swimming lessons. So that was, we were decent swimmers as children, but other than that, not sporty at all. Um, and then fast forward, really, it was like a lot of us. It was lockdown. It was that time which seems so surreal now, where we could only go out once a day to exercise.
Yeah.
And whilst it was nice being at home with the family, I enjoyed lockdown from that perspective. We did have, obviously, cabin fever, like a lot of us did. And I literally remember I'd never, believe it or not, used Instagram at all, but I've got all that spare time. I was having a look. And I never forget, I was sat on the sofa, and I think it was when Uber Eats might have first launched, or it launched for us anyway, because me and my partner, we'd ordered a McDonald's to the door. And I remember sat on the couch eating this McMuffin, looking out the window, thinking, I'm sick of this. I was 20 stone. I've got time on my hands. What can I do to make myself feel happier and more confident? Looked into Couch to 5K, got Instagram, and then all of a sudden I saw these happy, smiley runners that were like sharing their runs, and I thought, gosh, this is like great. They all look really nice and happy. I want a slice of that. So literally downloaded the app and went for it. And genuinely, like for me, I don't like to say it in a sort of gloaty sort of way, but the weight loss for me was really easy. But that was because I found something that I enjoyed and it wasn't a chore to do. So it was easy, but because I found something that was, good for me and gave me that, I want to do it again. I want to do it again.
Yeah.
So the weight literally dropped off really quickly. And so, yeah, that's how it started. And then the dancing really has been quite a new thing, really, that after each run, I just, it's just genuine sort of euphoria. And like I said on some of my posts, it's like a celebration. Each run to me is a reminder of all those anxieties and insecurities I've had growing up and where I was. So that's why I think some people must think, is that for real? Is he really like that hyped up after a run? And genuinely, it is the case. But I think it's just because I've come so far. All runs mean like a lot to me, so I just have to shake it out.
I think you kind of, for me, because I followed you for a little bit longer than some folk might have, and it does come across as genuine. So I remember when you first kind of started tentatively doing it, you saw a nervousness about it. You were doing it, you were checking over your shoulder, making sure the neighbours weren't watching, that there was no one, especially when you were on maybe the trails or on the more rural paths. You were checking to make sure nobody was watching, because I think as especially Instagrammers, we're all prone to doing a video or doing something when we're out in the run, but we're always checking over our shoulder to make sure that we're not going to embarrass ourselves.
Yeah.
But the way that you've developed, you can tell now that it's genuine. You honestly couldn't give two hoots if someone judges you or not, which is great. And I think that's nobody should worry about them being judged. But for anyone maybe looking from the outside in, I would say there's a genuine approach to the way you're doing that. From what you've said as well about being young and not having necessarily the backing of the PE teachers or the teachers generally, I can totally harmonize with that as well. It's not, well, at least when we were younger, it wasn't great. You had to fit a specific mold. You were a track and field athlete, or you were a hockey player, a basketball player, a football player, and if you weren't like one of the one of the popular kids, then you didn't get picked, or you didn't get the focus that you maybe should have done. And you could have changed of worlds, could have gone so much further in football or swimming if they'd given you that attention.
And it's quite sad to think there's people out there like us and other people that are, I suppose it's the way of the world to an extent, and it's who shouts the loudest with a lot of things. But to think that I could have been a Wolverhampton Wanderers player if that teacher had just, and that's why it's so important that we do go for what makes us, what we like, and we don't hold back, and we support and encourage our children, and because you never know.
No, you never know. And
that's something I always think. I wish I'd have started it earlier. I'm glad I found it, but I think I could have, everyone's a good runner, but I think my mindset and my levels of consistency and some of the strength, and I just think there's so many obviously amazing runners out there, but I just think if I'd have done it a bit earlier, I could have,
Gone
um,
for it. Yes, yeah.
yeah.
You could still be a Wolves player though, the way that we're going.
Well, that's
You're
it,
more of a
mate.
Wolves fan than I am. I'm a fly by night Wolves fan, but you could still be one the way we're going.
Yeah,
Um, but no. So yeah, you've built into it. And I think lockdown. Maybe that's the one of the rare positives about lockdown is a lot of people that maybe didn't have a fitness background or didn't have running have built into it. They found that love just for the sake of getting out, getting a little bit of fresh air, and knowing some of the other content creators that you connect with. It was very good for mental space, for positivity, and for mindset. So it's been
yeah.
great for that perspective for you. Kind of building off of that, then, how have you developed then your running? You've obviously lost a lot of weight from that. Um, where's running taking you so far? What have you maybe achieved in the last, let's say, couple of years since you've really built into your running adventure?
I think obviously I've done now. I still can't quite believe it. Life's so quick, and with running and stuff, the days go by, and then you've just sitting here now for a minute, saying that I've run 2 marathons. For me, that is like considering who I was and where I've come from. That is like really profound. And London Marathon last year, and then Manchester this year. That's absolutely like fantastic. And a marathon for anyone is amazing, but I think I've got two
Yeah.
with everything that's happened. That is amazing. But London obviously it was an amazing experience, and as you'll be aware, and
Well,
it
I'm not
was
aware. I've unfortunately never been successful with London, but it is
yeah,
the creme de la creme. I've actually said to my wife, if I ever get London, it'll be the last marathon I ever do, just
yeah.
because of what it is.
The whole build up. I mean, because it was my first, I like to know what I'm doing with things, and in new situations or things I haven't done before, I struggle with sometimes. So
Mhm.
I remember like the evening of London, I don't like to sort of bang on about it, but I was really, really poorly, and I
Mhm.
nearly pulled out because I got this like stomach pain, which I got in my head. It wasn't anxiety, it was a proper sort of poorly stomach. And I was up all night, and I went to the line, and it was better than it was, but then I think it was just genuinely deep rooted anxiety,
Mhm.
because as soon as I'd finished it, it had gone, and I had no effects after. But the whole process of that first marathon was really profound, and that's obviously a massive, massive highlight. You know,
Comparing that to the Manchester this year, is there any comparison? Did Manchester feel as rewarding, as energetic, as
I
atmospheric as London?
still haven't analysed Manchester enough. And I was chatting to another really nice chap on here, Jack Matthews, who's really supported me and given me some advice. Top class runner, but also very supportive. And we were sort of both chatting because he did his marathon, he did Manchester as well, and obviously I did. And I just didn't have, and he was the same. I just didn't have the buzz. I actually rang my girlfriend at 20k and said, "Look, if will you pick me up if I finish now? Because I just can't be bothered. I want to go home."
Yeah.
And she gave me the old pep talk, and she was like, "You are not finishing." I owe Manchester to her because I genuinely was just 20k. I just not physically but mentally, I just couldn't be bothered.
Hmm.
I didn't have all the pre-race nerves, which was good in a way because I think I knew what to expect with London, but it just I mean, the crowds were great. The course was okay. It was flat, but I can't quite put my finger on why. It just didn't
Just wasn't
click.
your
And
day. Yeah.
yeah, maybe it was just, I think sometimes you can overthink
Oh,
things, which I
100%.
do. But
We've had past guests talk about that as well, and they've done several marathons, and they'll talk about one being fantastic, and then the next one for no reason. Their training blocks felt great, their mentality's been perfect, their pre-race preparations have been great, and then just on the day,
yeah,
you just don't feel it. It's totally normal.
I
It is totally
suppose it
normal.
is. Yeah,
Um, it was a bit
yeah
of a
the
silly question,
training.
though. Sorry,
Sorry.
on you go.
was just saying, yeah, the training for Manchester, I felt easy. Like I
Mm.
sailed through it compared to London. No, that was just because it was the second time and I was used to it, or whether I needed to look at my plan. Maybe the plan wasn't quite as intense. Maybe I don't know, but I just felt like every run I smashed. I think I had 1 week of sickness which I had off, but other than that, it was for me a flawless training block. But so with that, it wasn't the fact that it was struggled to do the run. It was just something else. Just wasn't. Yeah,
It could totally be a combination of a number of things. Remind me then, was it London preparation? Did you pick up an injury not long, like in the middle of your block? Was there not like a niggle that you had?
my memory's so bad. You're better than me, Steve. Yeah, I did. Um,
So
my
maybe there's an element of that about overcoming London obviously has the vibe, it has the hype, it has the crowds, it's just the whole atmosphere, but also
yeah,
overcoming a setback and everything that you'd achieved to that point
yeah,
and
that's probably
overcoming it
it,
all,
Steve.
that maybe had that extra um, buzz about it all. Whereas Manchester, yeah, your training looked on point. You were serious. You were super serious about it, but you were still obviously taking it quite chill and enjoying the pre and post run dancing.
Yeah.
But maybe because it was flawless, you maybe didn't have adversity to overcome. You maybe just halfway through, you're just like, oh, this doesn't have the same feel.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
This is a silly question then. You would kill to go back to London, wouldn't you? And try it again.
How do you know?
I know a few
I'm
people that
so
might kill to get
annoying.
to London.
So annoying. One, because I'm a creature of habit, and I'm like, oh, you go through it like after London, I was like, within 10 seconds, I want to do another one.
Mhm.
Manchester, no, I wasn't. I was like that. I'm happy with that now. And then after a week, I am
You're itching.
thinking again. Mainly
Yeah.
because I'm in that routine of doing marathon training. So I'm thinking, well, why not just do it every year? My girlfriend's not too keen on that idea because I must remember it was sort of not a problem for her, but you know what it's like. The time and
Yeah.
having a
It's
supportive partner is massive.
very
Um,
much so. It takes a lot out of your day to day life.
so I'm like, but then I work for a charity, so I know there's always going to be an option to run it for them
Mhm.
as well. So
If you did get London again, though, and it maybe didn't feel as the same as the first time, would you be disappointed? Would that take away some of the shine off it? Then maybe do you think?
it might, yeah, maybe I should quit while I'm ahead with it because maybe
I'm
I
not
want
saying quit while you're ahead. I
to.
just
But
obviously
like, it's a good
don't want to
point
take
because
that off you. Yeah.
maybe, yeah, maybe subconsciously I'm thinking I'll get all those feelings and that buzz, but actually it probably wouldn't be the same this time round. So maybe I should just sort of have a year at least where I'm just, doing.
Enjoy your running. Yeah, enjoy
Yeah,
running for what it is. Maybe do a couple of smaller events, shorter
yeah,
distances, and see how you feel with that sort of vibe. Because as you say, if you work for a charity and you're not necessarily guaranteed a spot at London, but you have
no,
a higher chance of getting a spot through charity running. Maybe test the waters, do a couple of maybe 10Ks, half
yeah,
marathons, see if you have that same vibe as you felt with London at other events, because that would be the worst thing I think as someone who's enjoyed a particular run as much as you have, then running it again and being disheartened and having that, as I say, shine taken off of the event. But then with that in mind as well, you spend a little bit of time out of the country. You spend it in mainland Europe. Would you consider maybe trying an event over
yeah,
there and seeing if that worked for you?
definitely. That's another option. And I think my partner likes the idea of doing one abroad just
Yeah.
because she likes traveling and it might be a bit nicer for her as well. And she keeps sending me like Rome Marathon and Berlin and obviously all the videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be an option next time.
That would be a great option. That's the one thing. As much as I've said that if I ever got London, it would be my last one. My wife has also said she likes me running, as much as it takes a lot out of you, it takes a lot out of your day. It can be very draining, both mentally and socially. You then also have the opportunities to go and see the world, to go to other places. I've done Amsterdam, so she enjoyed the day in Amsterdam while I was running,
Yeah.
saw me at different points. But she wants me to run in places like Iceland and
Oh, that'd be
Tromso, where other
amazing.
guests have run in the past, and they would be great places to go and have that opportunity. So maybe that is something
Yeah,
keeps the partner happy, keeps you happy potentially.
definitely.
So that kind of
Yeah.
builds then into what the future holds. But I think then taking a step back before we get to there, I think I already know the answer. What is your favorite achievement so far? Then is it an event? Is it overcoming what you've overcome, or is it a kind of combination of multiple things?
I think, just thinking quickly, I think it's generally me as a person and me, and there's still a way to go, but like my confidence, how I've grown thanks to running as an individual in terms of my confidence and certain insecurities I've always had, which will always be there. But
Mm-hmm.
um, it's funny you should say that. And this might not be related to running, but it did jump out to me this morning. I remember before running, and everyone probably does this, maybe it's me being silly, but if I'd leave the house to go to work, I'd have to get out my car and check the door was locked probably 10 times. No joke. I'd have to get out my car because 10 might be slight exaggeration, but at least five. And I did it this morning for the first time in ages. I thought, what was that all about? I got in my car, started the car, and then thought, oh, did I lock the door? And it might be just that my brain's distracted now through the running and the dancing that I just have sort of trained myself not to do it. But maybe that's an anxiety thing where my anxiety levels have really dropped, which means I'm not doing it anymore. But yeah, just that really, I think. But the other thing I always think, I was thinking about this on my way home today, is, and I don't hear many people talking about this, and I think before running, I never thought I suffered with mental health or anxiety. It wasn't until I get that feeling after a run that I thought, shit, I think I've been struggling here and I haven't even noticed,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. And I
No,
think that's
100%.
really key, is that sometimes you get that, you know, ingrained in it and it becomes the norm to feel anxious, worried, upset, that you just sort of accept it. And then when you get that runner's high, all that shit basically just goes. It might not be forever, or it might only be for an hour, but it does go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, hope
No,
that
it's
answers
a
your
great.
question.
No, no, 100%. It's a great coping mechanism, and it's a great outlet for, I think, for most people. I would say there's some people that say that it's not a mental outlet at all. They just enjoy running. But no, I
Yeah,
think that would resonate with a lot of people. It's a great opportunity to be alone with your thoughts, but also forget some of life's stresses and worries, and even maybe so much. It might just be me being egotistical here. Maybe you're checking the door today was a subconscious thing of knowing that you were coming into this conversation today as well, and it is that worry about, and I know from past guests as well, a lot of people do worry about coming in and just having a
yeah,
conversation with someone that they maybe haven't spoken to face, let's say, before.
yeah,
No, I totally understand what you mean.
yeah.
I check the door all
Could
the
be
time
right.
regardless. I always do.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, I
that's
was a
great.
bit. It's weird because I get in situations like this, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're so sociable at work, and you're so confident," and I'm like, I don't see it
Mm-hmm.
always. And then I get like I was a bit nervous for this. Not like overly, but like within 30 seconds of getting in that new environment, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe there was a bit of apprehension for this, or yeah,
You know what it's like going into any interview. You always got that little bit of doubt.
yeah.
So then taking that step forward, then we've obviously touched on you would like to do London again. You would like to try other things. What would you say is it, what does the future hold for Eddie?
I think ultimately I shouldn't lose sight, and that's anything with marathon training. You can lose the fun element of it, and I try and keep that going. Um, so for me, it's just continuing to share that that fun and try and I often think like I'm kind of like a Jehovah's Witness of running. I like, and that's what it's all about for me. I like and I share and I encourage others because I want them to get that feeling I get. And there might be someone out there that could have that, but they haven't even discovered it yet. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm constantly cheering and supporting because I just want others, to get involved and try and get the enjoyment I get out of it. Um, and that's kind of it, really, just to keep having fun and trying to inspire others. I don't like the attention, believe it or not. I don't want people to say nice things about me or, it's lovely, but I just want to share how it makes me feel and hopefully maybe encourage and inspire others to get involved or continue with it,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, that does. It does make sense. Since
And
the
maybe a marathon thrown in again.
fingers crossed for the ballot. We've got a little bit to wait yet to find out.
Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense because life is short, and for a lot of people, it's very serious. Life is too serious, and it needs to. We're taught to grow up and become serious way too quick, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of immaturity as well in the world. But then there's immaturity in good ways. So maybe having a little bit more of a playful, childish approach to things,
Yeah.
enjoying yourself, that's not a bad thing.
Sometimes I think should I change my there's so many great profiles out there. There's so many running profiles pushing information out, which is great if that's what you want. That's not really what if I want to research into how to fuel for a marathon, I know I need to do that and I'll go in the right places to look for that. But I think, no, don't stop what you're doing because there's enough of that out there. So I focus on the dancing now because it's a little bit of a point of difference and it might grab people's attention and those people that are feeling down or struggling with the running, it might lift them. So I'm just going to focus on my thing and not in a selfish way. And everyone else can continue pushing their information out, which is great. But I think there's a lot of that. And I see, a lot of those posts on this is what I do or this is how you should do that. And I think there needs to be a degree of sort of find it out for yourself as well. And don't always take, what you read as gospel and like anything and kind of discover it for yourself, dip in and out of those profiles that you do really like, but just be authentic and
That's all
myself
you
really.
can be, and I think that's why people
Yeah,
follow you because you're authentic. What you do, as much as you don't want the attention, it's authentic. It motivates people, it inspires people, and you're right. There's a lot of coaches out there, coaches in inverted commas,
yeah,
saying don't do this or don't do that, and there's a lot of misinformation, and that's something that I am trying not to do. I am sharing a little bit of advice with podcast and segments on what has benefited me. But I always say, do what works for you. Don't rely on what I'm saying as
yeah,
being gospel because it might not work for me. As much as me dancing at the end of a run, it's not my thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That
yeah.
is your thing, and I think that's why people connect with you because they see that the genuine happiness that it brings to you. It's not forced. It looks genuine.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I've got so much to learn with running if I wanted to, and fueling, and my nutrition isn't amazing at all, and sleep is not great. But I'm kind of happy where I'm at, and I can do what I do, how as I am, and um, if I want to sort of take it further and get better or stronger, or I mean, I don't do any strength really other than the dancing and being on my feet all day. And I think I should really do some strength, but is it going to make me happy? Would I rather go for a run and an extra run that's going to make me happy? So it's weighing it all up, isn't it? And for
Yeah.
now, it's just going to be continuing to have fun and um, yeah.
Do what feels like it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Slightly different to most people then, because I think we've covered quite a lot of it. Is there anything or anyone that you maybe want to shout out? Because I think I covered it there at the beginning. your handle, but shout it out again. Shout out what your handle is as much as you don't want the attention. Tell us what your handle is, and maybe shout out someone that you or a few people that you maybe feel are worth it, because it helps to share as well.
Yeah, so obviously it's Ready Eddie Run, if you don't already know me. And the one thing I'd say I've got a group of 15, 20 sort of runners, Matt being one that I keep in touch with, and we bounce off each other, always commenting and reciprocating support. And that's what I love. And then there's obviously thousands of other really great runners that are there. And I'd like to give Jack a shout out. I think Jack Matthews, because he's a legend, and he's been supporting me since I sort of set it up, and he's just amazing. He's such a good runner. I keep telling him he should and could well be a coach, because he's just he studies it, and he's just a really nice chap, and he's always happy to help people as well. And I think he was chatting to me the other day about elitism and how some of the really sort of good runners sort of forget what big achievements it is for other runners, and that's what he doesn't like about sort of that level, where there is a little bit of a disparity, and you sometimes might look down on those that aren't as fast, but Jack stays true to sort of supporting everyone, and I think that's really commendable. So yeah, I'll shout Jack out, and people might want to look him up if they don't already follow him.
Perfect. But I will also tag him as well, just so he knows that you've done it. I'll tag him in. I think you shared something, maybe a reel of his recently, maybe the last couple of weeks, about that elitism. To know, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I think I might have done. Yeah.
Perfect. Unless there's anything else, then Eddie, I think that's a great way to sign off. And yeah, no, I think it's been a great conversation. It's very brief, but I mean, I'm always more than welcome to have you back on any time, and hopefully the gods are with us and we both end up in London. I hope that everyone I know ends up in London, and we can have a great big party and a great big dance before and after it.
That'll be good.
But no, thank you very much for joining me today.
No, thank you very much, Steve. Cheers, mate.
Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the dancing.
Up the wolves, mate.
Up the wolves. As with having welcomed others like Matt to the show, it was an absolute pleasure to have Eddie chat with me, opening up about his journey with some of the anxieties or alike that he's overcome alongside his weight loss to achieve major milestones in the past couple of years. His content, as I told him during the conversation, truly appears to be genuine. He isn't just doing it for airtime, clicks, likes, or followers. It's just one man having a blast and sharing positivity with the world, all the while being extremely humble about his reach to others. If you don't already, please consider giving Ready Eddie Run a follow over on Instagram. I'd highly recommend his content myself. Just remember to be happy and positive. He's just doing his best to stay positive himself, share the vibes. And I know he's had some iffy comments from people who are just sticks in the mud in the past. So please don't be one of these people. Show him the love and get on board with just going with the flow and being positive about your pre and post run endeavors. Anyway, I think I've had your ear for more than enough time this week again, so I will start to wrap things up as usual. Thank you as always for joining me today, downloading or streaming the podcast. It will forever be the best way to show your support for this show. You already should be aware of where you can find us, but we're on both Spotify and Apple. If you haven't done so already, please consider dropping us a rating on either or both, as it honestly helps us so much. Finally, you can follow us over on Instagram by searching the Point 99 podcast. That's the best way for you to get in contact with us through DMs, or you can drop any feedback from today's episode or any of the episodes to our email address, thepoint99podcast@gmail.com. You can also find my own profile over at Mr_Steve_runs. Next week will be the final episode of season 6 and the last of the episodes of the season structure before we go to the episodic releases. The guest I have lined up is no stranger to podcasting, especially Scottish running podcasts, but I know he's going to be an absolute belter, sharing superb knowledge, advice, and experiences. So please tune in next Friday to toast the season finale and welcome that phenomenal guest. Until then, and as always though, please stay safe, enjoy your runs, and you will hear from me soon.